Okay, settle down, everyone. Right, so I have got my player briefing notes for you. So here it is. It's only 30 pages per publication that I have released. Now, there's one on everything that you're going to need to know. So there is your collection of books. I've made a copy for each of you. If you could read through this, I know we're playing tomorrow, so I would focus on books 1, 2, 3. You can leave the fourth book for next week because that is the ancient histories of the Shabalandari, and they are not probably going to feature in episode 1 of the session. So books 1, 2, and 3 must read by tomorrow. Okay, good. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow. What do you mean you can't make it tomorrow? You've got to attend your grandmother's bachelor party? I don't understand. And you also can't make... Oh, you're going to the same bachelor party. Oh, I see. All right. Well, then all 4 by next week. Okay? Good. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Campaign Creators Series. My name is Guy, and the episode is sponsored by WorldAnvil.com. World Anvil, our world aggregator, world creator of choice, and now also PC creator of choice with Heroes that has been recently added. Well, not so recently by the time this video comes out, where your PCs can have their own page, share their thoughts, talk about feelings, and basically evolve in an organic way. It's super, super cool. Now we're talking about player briefing documentation. How much should you include in your player briefing document? Should you even have one? Is it necessary? Oh, all those kinds of questions. The ultimate answer is it's absolutely necessary if you're playing in a homebrewed world. But how much of it is necessary? Well, we're going to turn to Dungeon Fog's website to help us out in terms of collating our thoughts. Here we are on the main landing page for the world of Gaia, the Utherios Tales, Uther's Dragons, as we originally called it so long ago. And we're going to go through to prose. Now, the prose template is pretty much just a big blank template that you can add in whatever you so choose. Now, we've got a few things that we're going to have to add in here, and hopefully you're going to do this as we're going through this particular video. So like previous videos before, you have got a working document when we are finished. So timestamps will be in the chat down below. Look out into the doobly-doo for that. So, very first question. What is the very first thing that your players should know about when it comes to your setting? Well, or at least your game anyway. Is it the setting? Could be the setting. Is it what they're going to be doing? Could be. Is it the plot? No. Is it the types of races they're going to be playing? No. Is it the history of the particular NPC king that they're only going to meet once they're level 15 in about 6 months' time, and his relationship with his father, which was dependent on the history of the dwarves because the Dwarvish Empire was at its zenith 5,000 years ago? No. Definitely not. Where do we start? We start with what is called the elevator pitch. So let's put that in here. We're going to call it the pitch. What is the pitch to the players? The single sentence that you can come up with that encapsulates your entire campaign. What does this pitch have to contain? It needs to contain enough information to make me want to play in your game. So let's start to formulate. Now, this is basically what every single feature film goes through when they're trying to raise funding. They literally create a pitch so that they can try and sell it to studios. So in a pitch, we need to be enticed. Let's say, for example, we're doing Uther's Dragons. The basic idea is that there is this evil superpower who is invading a country that the players are going to have to try and defend, or the characters anyway, are going to have to try and defend. And the way that the invasion is happening is through replacement of important nobles, large-scale battles, as well as interpolitical conflict. It doesn't sound particularly exciting, so I always like to write it out. So we've got Evil Empire of Slard invading nice Greek kingdom using doppelgangers, politics, and massive armies. PCs will be caught up in the battle and will need to fight back and save their kingdom. Again, this is not an exciting. This is a fact. These are facts. These are facts. Facts are never very exciting, unless you are a historian, in which case then fine, facts are exciting. But generally speaking, facts don't get players to want to play a game. Facts are what is in the game. Okay, so let's start to rework it. So that's the idea. Let's see. Massive battles. Can we make the battles more interesting? What did we discuss when we were creating our campaign in the very first setting? In the very first few videos anyway. Lots of aerial combat involving homebrewed mechanics and monsters. Adventurers Guild. I'm just listing everything I can. Adventurers Guild with in-game progression and influence, listing all of the things that we need to list here. Now, when it comes to the pitch, in terms of for players anyway, what are the players really interested in? What are they particularly keen on learning? What are they focused on? The bottom line is that they are focused on, what is my character going to be doing? What cool stuff is my character going to be able to be involved in? When the player hears the pitch, they need to sit back and go, oh, I could create this character who does this. I could create a character who does that. Oh, that's so cool. I could create a character who does etc., etc., etc. So there is a huge scope in terms of refocusing our pitch onto what the players believe to be their advantage in playing in your game. So we're going to rework this. These are the facts. We've got 4 principal facts, 4 things that we kind of really drove home and really developed in terms of our campaign. Okay, so the evil empire of Slard invading an ice Greek kingdom using doppelgangers, politics, and massive armies. Meh, 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 meh. That's not particularly exciting. PCs are caught up in the battle, well, obviously, and will have to fight to save the kingdom. Do I? Do I really have to fight to save the kingdom? What if I don't want to save the kingdom? What if my character wants to go off and be a farmer? What if my character wants to go... So that's not a game changer. Lots of aerial combat involving homebrewed mechanics and monsters. That might be interesting. And again, this does depend entirely on your players. It really depends on what your players are looking for. Are they looking for lots of action? Are they looking for lots of politics? What kind of things? And you've asked them those questions beforehand. Remember in earlier videos, you have asked them those kinds of questions. So we're going to focus around the aerial combat, the politics, doppelgangers, so an adventurers guild. So let's try this. As part of the Adventurers Guild, or let's put it this way, as ranking members of the Adventurers Guild, you find yourselves involved in a political battlefield. An invading army of Slard is threatening everything everything you hold dear, replacing lords and leaders with doppelgangers. Okay, so it's the same kind of stuff. I'm just sort of rewording it, respelling it too, so doppelgangers is spelled correctly. You will have to fight them in the air, on the land, and in the halls of the capital. Capital. And in the halls of the capital. This is a game of intrigue, double crossing, griffin riding. This is a game of intrigue, double crossing, griffin riding, adventure set in the middle of the biggest battle you've ever seen. We'll make it the biggest one that they've ever seen. Okay, so when we read this, as ranking members of the Adventurers Guild, you find yourselves involved in a political battle. I'm going to drop the battlefield. In a political battle. An invading army of Slard is threatening everything you hold dear, replacing lords and leaders with doppelgangers. You will have to fight them in the air, on the land, and in the halls of the capital. This is a game of intrigue, double-crossing, griffin-riding adventure set in the middle of the biggest battle you've ever seen. That's a little bit more interesting than an evil empire invading the Great Kingdom using doppelgangers, politics, massive armies, PCs will be caught in the battle, lots of aerial combat. We could start to threatening everything you hold dear, replacing lords and leaders. Let's say instead of replacing, corrupting lords and leaders with their dark influence. You will have to fight to survive. Makes it more personal. To survive in the air, on the land, and in the halls of the capital itself. This is a game of intrigue, double-crossing, griffin-riding adventure set in the middle of the biggest battle you've ever seen. Right, bingo. So that's our pitch. So we can give this to our players and hopefully they'll go, oh, this sounds exciting. I could get behind this griffin riding. We've got Adventurers Guild. We've got Slard threatening. We've got this whole thing. This is a heroic type of setting. We didn't mention anything about the Greek setting. We didn't mention anything along those lines. We could put in there as threatening everything you hold dear, survive, in the halls of the ancient capital itself. If we really wanted to, of the ancient capital itself. It's entirely up to you how far you push it. But again, it's just about reworking it until it feels like something that you would want to participate in. And I think that's the important thing, is when you read back your pitch, you need to go, that's somewhere I want to be. I want to be in that game. I think that's cool. I can play a politician. I can play a warrior. I can play a griffin rider. I really like the idea of griffin riders. I like the idea of political battles. I like the idea of this. I like the idea of that. There's just so much going on there. We've hinted at the enemy. It's an army of the Slard, but we haven't spoken about Jakar. We're going to keep that for our big reveal. Once we're done with the pitch, we then need to go into the setting. And that is important. We need to unpack the setting so that our players can accurately, hopefully, align their characters now to that space. Now, why didn't we do this before session 0? Well, in session 0, we were still working out the kinks, and we still have many steps to go before our world is complete. So isn't this a bit preemptive in terms of creating the setting? Not really. We've got to the point now where we know that our setting is mainly the sort of Greco-Roman type space. We've got the army that's coming in, all of the other territories where the PCs are not going to begin. They're not going to get there easily. All of that stuff we've still got to create. We've still got to create myths and legends about this space. You know, we've still got a lot to go, but we have enough in which to start. So in terms of the setting, again, we're not writing books. At no point are we referring to history. This is where we start to talk about facts, but again, we've always got to bring it back to what the players are concerned about. So that means in the setting, we're going to say this, the world is very similar to ancient Greek mythology. Set in a Greco-Roman style kingdom. You will find the phalanxes of hoplites fighting against centaurs, satyrs, because we just made them a playable race, centaurs, satyrs, and Medusa. Again, we're talking about giving our players stuff that they really want to fight against. Pretty cool. Phalanxes of hoplites. Hoplites, shoplifter. Hoplite. Really? Phalanxes of hoplites and the like. That is the stuff that we really are going to get our players going, really get them excited. Now, we haven't finished with our setting. We've sort of given them some hints here and there. We now need to say, you can play as a logical elf, a barbaric dwarf, a philosophical human, a roguish satyr, a crafty diplomat, or an heroic champion of the realm. The stage is set for greatness if you are prepared to seize it. Okay, so a little bit more about in terms of what our playable race is. If you wanted to add in there, let's say tieflings, half orcs, all that kind of stuff, you can do that. It's just about giving them an outline of what they can play. Now, I will tell you, whether you write one sentence or whether you write 50, your players are still going to ask you if they can play something else. How do you answer that? The best way to answer that is to ask yourself first, how does this fit within my setting? If the players want to play a Warforged, to Warforged fit within your Greco-Roman style? Well, you had Archimedes as Screw, you had all of those kinds of ideas where they were starting to get to the prospect of building machinery. One of the biggest limitations as to why the Romans never got, or the Greeks never got to building these gigantic contraptions was because the blacksmithing skill wasn't there to build these micro cogs of incredible tensile strength. So there just wasn't the actual facility. Wood would snap under certain amounts of pressure, so you could only go so small. So the whole idea is, does it fit within your campaign? If so, add it in. If it doesn't, then simply say, I'm sorry, that race doesn't fit there. If you really want to play a Warforged, why do you want to play a Warforged? Because you like their statistics. Okay, give me some time. Let me think about finding an equivalent. If you look at films like Clash of the Titans, where we had the little mechanical owl that was built by various sources, depending on which book you read or which film you watch, there is a space for mechanical beasts, perhaps. I don't know. It's entirely up to you to decide. Again, though, about the setting, that's where you want to fit in. Magic is still raw and untamed and flows freely. Great heroes covet the powerful artifacts that lie scattered in the tombs of ancient horrors. It was kind of in pitch face. This is a land that is discovering the true power of the arcane, spelled properly, arcane, and is under the yoke of the divinely inspired priests who intercede on behalf of the populations. Now, it might not be good grammar, but again, it's just about giving the guys a sense of where are they going to find themselves. So we've got these priests who are in power and that can control stuff. Again, some of this stuff we haven't created yet. Some of this stuff is being created as we do this. So we're going to have to go back to this briefing document. And again, this is why we're doing it now. If we did it earlier on, we would feel as if we have a mountain of work to do. We've done a lot of this stuff. Now we're looking at refinement. So now we're saying, aha, so now we have our divine priests, but I've forgotten that we're using the circles, we're using the cults. So I'm actually going to take this out. This is a land discovering the true power of the mysterious, I'll come back, cults that worship life, death, logic. What were some of the other ones? I've completely drawn a blank. The elements and more. There are no gods, only the cults, and each seeks to position itself as the dominant cult in the land, because they do. Some of them do, some of them don't. Doesn't matter. It's to tempt them, to get them in there. So now this starts to open up the question of what religions are available. You're not going to put that into this document here. You want them to come to you and ask what religions are available and to explain the cults. That will take you to the cult template that you have worked out. So we can continue with this, but I wouldn't go too much further. The best thing that you can put in finally is you will be playing a member of the Adventurers Guild. A sophisticated system is in place to allow your character to advance within the guild, as well as take advantage of being recognized as a hero. That's an important line. Your players need to know what you expect of them. And again, they're going to come to you and say, well, do I have to be a hero? Yes, you do for my campaign. Don't feel obliged to go, well, no, actually, no, you can be a dock worker. Why? You've created this campaign with a very specific intention in mind. This invasion, this invasion force of Jakar, you've built up all of this stuff. Why would you then allow your players to derail all of that planning by then letting them do whatever it is that they want to do? I agree, players should be given agency when it comes to creating their characters and when it comes to doing when their characters are making decisions. That is entirely up to the players. The idea that the players can create these entities that will not fit within your entire campaign, however, is completely mind-boggling. If they don't fit, if they don't match, if they don't have the prospect of becoming involved in this massive army, in the politics and all of that kind of stuff, then why are you letting them into your game? It's as simple as saying, I'm sorry, that won't fit within the campaign. You're going to have a really tough time. If you have a player who's a really good role player, maybe you can let them do that. But otherwise, I would advise against it. I would simply say that's not going to fit within the campaign. Try again. You will have seen a lot of this coming out in session 0. Now is the time. You haven't had your first session yet, but now is the time for you to change that and to make sure that they align this. Use this document if you like. Use this document to drive home your own questions around the characters that have been made, around the characters that are being used, that have, will they have the sufficient capacity to work within your game, within your campaign. Do not be afraid to say no. Let's change it. Let's adjust this. I would like it if your parents were not fishermen. Maybe you think they're fishermen, but they were actually part of the Adventurers Guild. They were secretly high-ranking members, and then they retired and they became fish. Work it out so that you can bring the player character into the space, into your game, without it disrupting your flow. Because there's nothing worse than having a character that really doesn't match, that doesn't work. That is something that you really, really, really want to avoid. I also wouldn't make the primer include a starting position. Oh, your characters are on the run from this or from that. They're being hunted by, and then give them a list of names and all that kind of stuff. Rather, work with the players whilst they're making their characters and say, can we insert into your background that you're being chased by so-and-so? Or that you have this involvement with this organization, or that you have a debt here, or that you have a this. Work with your players during character creation. Don't just sit back and say, okay, well, that's the backstory. Great, lovely, moving forward. Don't also give them this book of these are the NPCs that you've been involved with, and da-da-da-da. That's too much. That's too much information. They will never remember it. And even if they did, the first game, they're going to be sitting there reading all of their notes rather than playing the actual game. You want to give them short, basic snippets, get them into your world, and then you can start working on the detailing and the like. Nonetheless, those are my thoughts on how you should create a primer for your space. Short, simple. Give me a pitch that I can listen to in under 30 seconds and go, I want to be in that game. Then give me a little bit about the setting, and then we're done. Move on, start playing the game. Well, not just yet. We've got a few more steps before we get to Adventure 1, but we will be getting there. Until next time, thank you for watching. Remember to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you want to see more of these kinds of videos. We do love your feedback. Give me your pitch for your world in the comments below. I'd love to see what your worlds are like. Until then, however, as they say in World Anvil, light up the forge. Okay. You're going to like this. I've reworked it, so it's not 4 books anymore. I watched the video and I subscribed because I liked the content, and now I've actually got 8 books. Yes, I've rewritten it, so there's more races you can play. I've created custom backgrounds. Everybody gets their own magical item, which has got the full history of the magical item. Like, you're getting a Goblin Bell, which when you ring, it summons a whole bunch of goblins. Because 1,000 years ago, I thought your grandmother's bachelor party was last week. No, oh, it's your grandfather's maternity shower. Oh, lovely. Well, send them my regards. Yeah, and yes, I know you're going because you go to all of the things. Right, so next week then,